Okay, so with the perspective, I would definitely work on your drawing paper. I'm trying to get this as close as possible where you can see it is a little more complicated with perspective. Okay, so I have my 9 by 12 drawing paper, and for the sketchbook, you're basically going to be drawing boxes in 1 point and 2 point perspective. And so today we're going to focus on 1 point perspective, and this was when I started from last semester. And so you can see I have various types of boxes and in this. And so today I'm going to show you how to do this first, and this is what's going to be your part of your sketchbook assignment. So you're going to draw these boxes in 1 point and 2 point, but today we're just going to go over 1 point perspective. So as I draw this, I'll show you. I have my tools all here. I have some pencils. Now, whenever you're drawing with perspective, you want to make sure you're using very fine and precise pencils because the more precise it is, the more accurate it's going to be, and your drawing will look better. But you also need to be able to erase it, and you don't want a bunch of smudges if it's going to be like a really clean technical drawing. So this is one time it's okay to use a mechanical pencil, or I would say a number 2 pencil, the HB pencil, or one of your H pencils. So do not use a B pencil on perspective, okay? Unless you're adding value or something, and that's what you're going to be doing the whole drawing in. And you can see in the PowerPoint there are some examples of students that chose to treat the assignment more like a value study for the hallway drawing or the box city drawing. But for this, it's really specific in the instructions. It says to do it with a sharp pencil and then go over it with a marker or a pen. And so that's what we're going to use today. And so I have a number 2 pencil, and then I have this mechanical pencil. Whenever you're pressing down with your pencils on the paper, try not to press down too hard. Like, make a mark, but if you press down too hard, you'll also emboss the paper, and what that means is it leaves like a dent in the paper. So even if you erase it, you'll still kind of see that sort of invisible line that you can't really get rid of, okay? So try not to press too hard and keep your pencils sharp. And then I have just a regular vinyl eraser, my electric eraser in case it's too hard to erase in an area or I need to get it in a small area. And then I have just a kind of like a Sharpie pen, but it's a different brand. But it's just a super fine point black pen. And then I have let me grab a different color pen. And then I grabbed a blue marker too because I am going to be showing you how to make some things transparent and hollow. And so I want you to be able to see which lines are meant to be, would be ones that you would see and which ones would be unseen unless it was transparent. Okay, so I have my paper here. So the first thing the instructions tell you to do is to measure and find like the middle of your paper, and you're going to draw the horizon line. So when you go through the PowerPoint and the vocabulary, you'll see the horizon line ideally is where the earth and when the sky and the earth meet together. But of course, when we're indoors or we're just making this up, it can be wherever we want. So for this exercise, for the sketchbook exercise, we're going to just put the horizon line in the middle of the paper. But for your other assignments, you can raise the horizon line up or down depending on what type of composition you want. And what that does is it changes the viewer's vantage point. And that means where you are as the viewer. And so if you put your vanishing point down low, it makes the viewer feel like they're up high. And if you put the vanishing point, the horizon line up high, it makes the viewer feel like they're down low. So you could play with that in your drawings if you want to. For the drawing 2 students, if you want to draw different shapes besides squares for this exercise or boxes, you could. just make sure it's something that you can draw in perspective still. Okay. For drawing one, I would stick with the boxes for now. So I'm going to use a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you could use like just a straight edge, maybe the side of like a binder or something to do this. I have like my favorite rulers at the college, but it's a transparent ruler that has a grid on it. And I think it's used for like quilting and cutting fabric, but I really like it for perspective because I can see my lines through it. But at home, all I had was this old ruler, so I'm going to make do with that today. So I'm going to draw the horizon line. I'm just eyeballing it in the middle, but you want to use a ruler. Like I don't want to see, wiggly lines in your drawing. I want to see that you've used a sketch because that's really the whole point of perspective is accuracy. And so I'm going to put in the middle, since this is 1 point perspective, that means there's one vanishing point. So in the middle, I'm putting this little tiny dot. Now, sometimes students want to make those like the size of like the end of a pen or an eraser, but don't do that because you need it to be small so that whenever you line everything up, it's going to the same point. If you make a big vanishing point, you may not line the ruler with the same part of that vanishing point each time, and it will make your drawing maybe a little skewed and not quite accurate. Okay, so now that I have my vanishing point, I think it tells you to label that VP for vanishing point. Now it tells you that you're going to draw 4 boxes. One is going to be above the horizon line, one is going to be on the horizon line, and one is going to be below the horizon line. And then the fourth one can be any of those places, but it's going to overlap with at least one of the other boxes. Okay, so just like this, I have 2 above, 1 on the horizon line, and 1 below. And then these 2 are overlapping. They're both solid. I have one that's hollow, and then one that's transparent. Okay, so you're going to be doing the same thing. So I'm just going to start with drawing a box up in the sky here. And these don't have to be super precise. I think on the instructions I said try not to make them smaller than like 2-inch squares. So try to keep them a little bit larger because if you draw them too small, it gets really challenging to do this. And try to keep them away from the vanishing point. If you get too close to the vanishing point, it also kind of looks a little strange. So with my pencil and my ruler, I just drew a little floating box. Now with perspective, it wasn't discovered until the Renaissance, and you'll hear more about that in PowerPoint. But really, it was a way before photography, before electricity, that we could create an illusion of space. And so that's the whole point of it, is to help us create more of a sense of space. We see it in photography when we take photos. We see it in real life when we walk down halls and we walk around buildings and roads. And so it's an illusion that everything's going to one point in the in space. And so that's what artists discovered. They discovered how to control that, and that's by using vanishing points. The reason that we have 1 point perspective and 2 point perspective is 1 point is when you're facing an object from the front, and 2 point is when you're facing it from a corner. And so we'll deal with the 2 point, like I said, on Thursday. So from each corner, I'm now going to draw to the vanishing point. And I do this flat because I find that it's easier to draw flat with holding the ruler up. And since everything is lining up with something, then you don't really have to worry about it getting distorted because of the tilt. If I decided to draw this and then fill it in with pastel or whatever I wanted to use, watercolor, at that point I may put it up on an easel. But to do the initial drawing, I'm just going to do this. But for these, they just need to be pencil and marker. Like, that's it. Okay, for the other ones, you can get more creative. So now that I've drawn these 2 sides to the vanishing point, now I'm going to line my ruler up with the bottom here, and I'm just going to slide it down, keeping it parallel, and I can decide how big I want to make this box. So I'm going to draw a parallel line here to where I get to this line, and then I'm going to do the same thing with this side. I'm going to line it up and then slide it over until that intersects with this bottom line, and I'm going to draw a little line here. Okay. I wasn't quite lined up on the ruler with the first line. All right, so now you see I have this kind of floating box in space. Now,
can you hold it up a little closer, because
oh yeah,
it's not really showing up.
Oh, can y'all not see in the?
It's too light. Well, now that it's closer, we can see a little bit.
Okay, let me try disconnecting this camera and see. All right, so give me just a second. I'm trying to use just the camera on my laptop and see if that's a little more clear. Can you all see me?
I can't.
Okay, so hopefully this may be a little more clear. I don't know. Can you all see this better?
That's better for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think my laptop camera is better than my attachable one, but it's harder. I can't. I have to kind of close my screen a little bit, so I can't see anything right now. But that's okay. You're the ones that need to be able to see this. So I have the this one box in 1 point perspective, and then I like to outline them as I go along. So I'm just going to take this ruler and outline this box. And once I outline it in pen, it'll be easier for you all to see as well.
So you drew a box above the horizon line and then connected it to the vanishing point?
Yes. And yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing, is just a bunch of boxes in 1 point perspective for the sketchbook exercises. We'll do some in 1 point and some in 2 point. And on Thursday, I'll show you how to do the 2 point ones. So I'm just going back over the pencil lines. I like to do this as I go, so then I can erase the pencil so I don't get confused with the other lines that are around. And when I was in high school, my art teacher never talked about perspective. We just didn't do it in that class. But when I got to college, and I think I took my first drawing one class, one of my professors was really technical, and he had us draw like a hallway with these lockers in it, and then like the inside of a room, and then we had to draw like an open drawer with like objects in it. And he's like, "You're really good at perspective." And I was like, "I hate it. I don't want to be good at it." And he's like, "No, will you draw this building for me?" And he had me go outside and draw this building for the college. And I spent, I think, 2 or 3 weeks sitting outside, because this was before we had cell phones and cameras on our cell phones. And so the only way for me to draw it was literally every day in class. I would go sit outside with my drawing board and my ruler and my protractor and all these other tools that we would have to use. And I spent weeks drawing this building. And he had a few other advanced drawing students drawing other buildings at that college, and then they were all put on display in the library, kind of showing like the history of the buildings of the college. And I hated it, and every day he would come by and like count all the bricks and make sure everything was right, and he would point out everything I did wrong, and he made me keep it all in pencil until it was perfect. And I was like, I never want to do perspective again in my life. And then when I finished it, it looked so good. I was like, whoa, I was really surprised by myself. And then it got put on, permanent display in the library at that school. So it was really a cool opportunity. So that's the thing about perspective. It is a lot of work, but once you kind of get it, you'll be surprised by the illusion of depth you can create. And it is a good tool to have, even if it's not something that you use maybe in your everyday artwork. But it can help you add a sense of space to your artwork. So I'm going to leave these orthogonals. That's what these imaginary lines are. I'm going to leave them for now because I'm going to use them later to kind of show you how to do overlapping. And now my next step is to draw, I'll draw one on the horizon line. So over here, I'm just going to draw a little box here. And you can draw whatever squares or rectangles that you want. Like I said, if you're in drawing 2 and you want to challenge yourself, I've had students do letters and more complex shapes. So when it's on the horizon line, you notice that when it's above, you see the bottom of the box. When it's on the horizon line, you don't see the top or bottom because it's eye level. And so for that one, we only have to do 2 sides that will be going to this vanishing point. For those of you that did the brain test and you were more left brain, this might actually be easier for you because it doesn't really involve much right brain thinking. It's more of an analytical kind of type of drawing. So you can see I drew this side, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to keep my ruler parallel to the original side and slide it over, deciding how big I want to make that side. I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to make it solid. I always like to do the solid stuff first so I remember what lines I would see and what lines I wouldn't see. And so I always like to do this as I go along. And I know when you're outlining these with marker, you're going to be like, I don't need to use the ruler again. The line's straight, but I promise I'll be able to tell, and I will take off points for wobbly lines. So use the ruler or a straight edge or something. Okay, so you can see I have a solid line here now. Now, because this is going to be hollow, it's still not going to it's not going to be transparent. So I would not see the horizon line through the center. So I just went ahead and erased that through the center so I don't get confused by that. Now, when something is hollow, that means you can see in one side of it. So I'm going to choose to make it, this front-facing side, almost like it's a cargo container that we could drive up into or something. So with perspective, you never make anything up. So you never are like, oh, I guess I'll just draw a line here or here. Everything always lines up. So there's always a right way to do everything. So what I'm going to do is line up this corner to the vanishing point and this corner to the vanishing point, and that's going to give me those inside walls to make this hollow. So that's one of the things I love about, you can stare at a piece of fruit and try to match the color with what limited palettes that you have, forever wondering, as the light's changing around you, if you got it perfect, and you see something maybe that other people, maybe you see color slightly different than everybody else, but with perspective, there is a right way to do it. So notice I didn't draw all the way to the horizon line, to the vanishing point. You know, once you get the hang of it, you don't have to draw all the way across the paper. But if you're new to it, I would, just so you know what you're doing. Now, this is a good point to make a good stopping point to make a point about the back wall. So a lot of times students will just draw these two lines and say, okay, it's hollow. But if the back wall, depending on how it's going back into space, you may see part of the back wall. And so what I always tell students, if they're really not understanding, is if you have like a little box at home, this is a little box that some business cards came in. Look at this box and like turn it. I can't really see the camera. Hopefully you can, but hopefully this is like you looking straight at it. You can see the back wall, but as you turn it away from you, what happens? You slowly start to see less of the back wall, and if you keep turning it, what happens? You don't see any of the back wall at all. So depending on how big you make this side of your drawing, if I were to make it bigger, I probably wouldn't see any of the back wall, but because I made it shorter, I'm probably going to see some of it. Now, how do you determine that? Well, it's really simple. You draw from this corner and this corner straight across, and wherever it crosses these two lines, that's where that would be the back corner of that room. So I'm going to take my ruler and line up that corner here and draw a straight line. And then I'm going to do the same thing here with this back corner. Just you always want to try to stay parallel to the horizon line. So that's why I keep, if you're wondering like why I'm moving the ruler so much, is I want to be able to see the horizon line to make sure my ruler is staying parallel. Okay, so you can see those, this plane and this plane, they cross right here. So then that's going to be the back corner. So now all I have to do is connect those two intersections, and that's the back wall. Do you see it? So I wouldn't see this part because it is going to be hollow, not transparent. So now with my marker, I'm just going to go over these lines. That thunder is a little ominous for starting perspective, but at least since it's raining, there's not much to do outside, so you can stay inside and do perspective, I guess. Okay, so now you see I've outlined that, and it looks like a hollow open box. And then I can come back with my eraser, you know, and erase all the other little lines. Okay, so now I'm going to make one below that I'm going to make transparent. So I'm going to again start out with a rectangular object or square. And then since this one is hollow, since this one's going to be transparent, I want to draw all four sides to the vanishing point, because since it's going to be transparent, you would see all of these sides. So again, you want to just make sure every single time. Something just happened to my pencil. No. Every single time you want to make sure it's lined up perfectly to have accuracy. So each point this, believe it or not, this is a challenging one for students to see whenever we are face to face too, because only so many people can fit, right up by my easel where I'm doing a demo. And so I usually end up having to come around and helping people. So you can see I drew all four sides to this vanishing point. So now all the same steps, I'm going to start with the top, and I'm going to just keep a parallel line, decide how big I want to make this object, and draw that parallel line. Then for this side, I'm going to keep a parallel line until it intersects with that top that I just drew. And then I'm going to draw that parallel line. So that gives me the solid shape now. So at this point, I actually like to go ahead and outline the solid shape because that's not going to change. And then that way it'll help me also see what parts I need to make hollow and how to do that. So I'm just outlining. And it does help to have a flat surface to do this on. I'm working on top of this table that I've been painting on for probably over 10 years now. And so there's a lot of little bumpy paint stuff under it. It might be easier. I should have probably put my drawing board down first so that I had a nice smooth surface. And I've thought about before, do I really have to have them do so many perspective drawings? But I stay in touch with professors from universities, and what they're usually most impressed with from students coming from a community college is their understanding of value with charcoal and perspective. And I've had so many students do their portfolio review with UNT, and they came back and were like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I put all my perspective drawings in because that's what they wanted, and they loved it. And so you knowing how to do this and doing good on these the sketchbook assignment and then these two perspective, these may be things that you need to include in a portfolio to get into a university program. All right, so I have what looks like just a solid box right now, but I need to make this hollow. So I'm going to go back to my pencil. Again, we never want to make anything up. So we have this line, this orthogonal that's going to the vanishing point. So what I need to find is where that back corner is going to be. So it's going to intersect with this line. So all I have to do really is to line up the ruler with this back corner here, and then keep it parallel to the base of the box, and then draw a straight line here until it intersects with this orthogonal. And then this, if I did everything right, drawing from this corner, yep, it lines up perfectly right here. So then that is the back wall. So at this point, I usually will take a different color marker. And if you have another marker or pen that you can use, you may do that. Want to do that too. And then I outline that part just so I know, because if you use all black, sometimes it will create kind of an optical illusion and you can't tell what's coming forward and what's going back. So I always like to use a little different color pen so that it helps create that illusion of three-dimensional space. Okay, so now I have what looks like a transparent box. So I'm going to erase all of these orthogonals and all these other lines, so hopefully it's a lot cleaner and you can see it better. And so hopefully you can see it's a nice transparent box. So I've got one below, one above, one on. I have a transparent one, a hollow one, and a solid one. So now I just need the fourth box. If you read the instructions for the sketchbook for the part one, I just need one more to overlap. So I could make it overlap on any one of these. So it could be on the horizon line, below, or above. But the reason I left my orthogonals here is because you can use those to help you do overlapping. You can use them for other objects. So all I have to do, let's say I wanted to make a shape overlap here, I could just draw an additional box back here, or I could do it up here at the top. So I'm gonna draw a little bit of a gap between this box, and then I'll start another box. So you can use those same orthogonals to draw several boxes going back into space. Now you have to remember, like each little piece, like these would be straight lines because they would have been the front of the box. And then keep your lines parallel, so then I can slide down and then do the same thing here. So now it looks like there's another box behind this one. So I'm just going to outline that with my ruler. And normally I have students do this with like 9 boxes, and I make it part of the portfolio. But for this class, I decided to just make it the sketchbook assignment and have you really try to focus your time on making, really good quality perspective portfolio assignments with the other. So I just totally, I had a bump in my line, so that line's not perfect, just ignore. So I'm just going over all the pencil lines, and then I'll erase everything. And I know I called this a sketchbook assignment, but it may be kind of hard to do this if you have a really small sketchbook. So you could do it on a separate piece of paper and just submit it as like your sketchbook assignment. So now I have everything drawn. I have 4 boxes. I meet all the requirements. So now I'm just going to go back over the vanishing point. I think it says on the instructions like to label it VP, and you would draw it where you would see it. And then I think I forgot on the instructions it said also to label the horizon line HL. And then I'm going to draw it where I would see it in the design. So this whole length of the horizon line, I would see it here. And I would see it up until this box. And then I would see it off the page here. Okay. And now I can come back in and aggressively erase all of the pencil. Now, one thing I've had students do before is they saw me do this demo, and then they went and were trying to like copy my demo, which I know normally if we're working from observation, that's one way to work. But with perspective, all of your points have to line up. So you have to do this step by step. So it's not an observational drawing technique, it's a process technique. So you have to go through all the steps in order for everything to line up perfectly. So yours may not be exactly like mine, because depending on where your vanishing point is, that's where you'll be drawing. All right, so now that it's all finished, there's a couple of smudges. I think my eraser may have a little charcoal on it, so I may have to come back later with my electric eraser to get some of those smudges off. But they're all there. So I have a solid box. I'm just going to label them, and I'll post this online for you later. Here I have overlap. Here, this is a transparent. And then over here, this is the hollow box. Okay. And then one thing a lot of you keep forgetting to do with your sketchbook exercises is putting your name and the date on each one. And I haven't really been taking out points because I can tell the similar style, but that is only one way to prove, the only way really to prove that it's authentic and that you created it. So try to do that in the future, because I've asked several times and some of you keep leaving that off. For the big assignments that we do, I'm not having you do that because you may not always want to put your name on the front of your artwork, but that's why I'm having you post with the selfie with that drawing. Okay, so that's why you're posting the selfie, is just proof that you did it and you're holding it in your hands. Where for the sketchbook, you know, sometimes there's 25 drawings in a sketchbook assignment, and I don't want you to have to take 25 selfies with each page. So for the sketchbook, we're signing our name and dating each one. For the bigger drawings, you're uploading those with the selfie. So this is literally 100% complete, just like I asked for part one of the sketchbook in 1 point perspective. And you might even label it 1 point perspective and save this, because you may need it later if you have to do perspective again. Okay, so that is the basic kind of steps of 1 point perspective. And again, for drawing 2, I know if you've taken me for drawing 1, you've done this in possibly like 9 of these, and I had even more challenges for you. You could try doing other shapes if you want to for this, if you wanted to try making it a little bit more challenging. Okay, so that's going to be the part 1 of the sketchbook. Now, the next thing you're going to do for your actual assignment with 1 point perspective, this is for your portfolio drawing, is you're going to take an image of a hallway. So you're not just making a hallway up. I do want you to work from a photograph. Normally, I have the students at the school go around North Lake, and they have to photograph a hallway or an outdoor sidewalk in 1 point perspective, and then they use that. But since the campus is closed, I'm letting you use whatever hallways that you want, as long as you have permission to use them and reproduce them, or you give them credit as like a study. So I don't want you working from other people's artwork, but you could work from other people's photographs, okay? Not, and photos are art too. I'm not saying they're not. I just, you know, I think sometimes drawings sort of simplify how we see things, and I want you to do that from the image like you're there in real life, okay? So here, this was a drawing from a hallway in a hotel. Here, this is a sidewalk at our North Lake North Campus. And then this was the little 1 point quick drawing I did of it last semester. And so I'm going to show you how to take this and turn into a drawing right now. So you'll want to print your photo smaller than your paper. And so I have a couple here. I was really wanting to use this one. It's the kids from The Shining, the 2 little twins in the hallway. But when I printed the photo, it didn't really look good. I don't know how easy you can see it either. So I have printed one of the DART station at North Lake. Now it is a square and our paper is horizontal, so I am going to have to keep that in mind as I'm drawing. But what I wanted to show you is a little technique I found. Now normally I would have, back before when I started teaching almost 15 years ago, students didn't have, a lot of students didn't have cell phones or camera phones. And so we literally I would tell them, go find a hallway, sit down, take your ruler. They would have to bring a protractor, the little half circle that has the angles on it. And they would have to sit in one spot without moving and close one eye and try to find like all the angles of the hallways. and then translate that to their drawing and draw that. And I would usually give them like a week in a 16-week semester to work on that, and then they would have to finish the rest from home. But I would just walk around the school trying to find all the students to see how they were doing. And then one day, I can't remember why, we couldn't leave class, and then a student in my class was like, "Can't you just find the vanishing points on the photo and then put that on the paper and drag them off? Wouldn't the angles be the same?" And this was a student, I think they were like a math or science major that was taking art class for fun. And it was just like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, that is brilliant. And then I was like, let me test it first. And then it worked. And so now I have discovered, with the help of a student, a much easier way to translate perspective using photography to a drawing. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So the first step is you have to find the vanishing points on your photo. Now, again, you want to make sure it's a 1-point perspective view. So you need to be facing, like front view, facing something. All right. Sometimes you can have 1-point and 2-point in the same view, depending on if objects aren't lined up. But if they're all like kind of parallel, like a hallway, everything's gonna go to 1 point. I think I am gonna try to use this one, and I'll post the finished result too for you all to see. So what I'm gonna do with my pencil is I'm going to need to find the vanishing point on this hallway with these little kids in it. So ideally, everything in this hallway should all intersect to one vanishing point. So I'm going to use the side of the rug here, and I'm going to line that up and just extend that line a little bit. And then I'm going to use the side of the rug here and extend that line, and then those cross, and guess what? That's the vanishing point. But I want to show you, I'm going to do that for several lines and just carry it off the page. So I want to show you that this is real. Like, perspective is real. This is a linear perspective, is a pretty precise way to draw. So even like the tops of the doors, the ceiling, so I'm not just making, I've seen students, they come up and they just drew lines everywhere. I'm not doing that. I'm actually lining it up with parts of the architecture to, because I'm going to need to carry those off the paper to get those things right in my drawing. Okay, so I drew all those lines. Hopefully you can see them. They all end up lining up with in the middle here. And depending on your image, your vanishing point may be off to one side or higher. It just depends on the angle the person took the photograph. So mine pretty much ends up in the center, which I think was part of the cinematography of that film. Now, my paper is a little shorter. It's obviously not this long of a rectangle. So I'm going to fold it so it's more proportionate to this size piece of paper. Okay, so that's, if you see me fold it, that's why. All right. Now, so that's going to make my vanishing point off to the right side. Now, since I have my vanishing point here, that means the horizon line, the vanishing point's always going to be on the horizon line. So I'm going to draw the horizon line here, and you can see that it's a little bit lower than the middle. So I wouldn't say quite a third. It's a little bit more than that, but you can see it's goes straight across and it lines up. So now what I'm going to do on my paper is I'm going to do the same measure, draw the horizon line about in the same spot. So it's a little bit more than a third of the way up. So I'm going to draw my horizon line here. So you do have to kind of estimate it a little bit. All right, and then
Sorry, how do you know? Can I ask a question? Sorry.
yeah, you can ask a question.
Okay, thanks. How did you know where to draw the horizon line?
Well, the vanishing point is
I would have
always,
thought it would be like where the carpet ended, but
no, the vanishing point's always going to be on the horizon line. So since I drew all the orthogonals from the architecture, where they intersect is going to be the vanishing point, and then the vanishing point is always on the horizon line. So when you're indoors, you can't see the horizon line, you have to find it. Does that make sense?
oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay, and what is the exact definition of a vanishing point?
The vanishing point is the point where it appears like all objects in your view are all going towards in space. So it's like that one point on the, like if you were standing outside looking at a road that was parallel, if you stared at the road and it was straight, it's going to appear to go to one point into the distance. And so that's what we call the vanishing point.
Mm,
Does that make
okay,
sense?
thanks.
If you go through the PowerPoint, I promise, and look at the vocabulary and stuff, it will answer most of those questions. I would
Yeah,
definitely, if this is
I
new,
will.
okay. But yeah, so the vanishing points, like in one point perspective, it's where everything is appearing. You can see, like, I didn't make this up, like, you can see the sides of the bottom of the hall, the rug or the carpet, the architecture up here. Everything went to this one point, and the vanishing point's always on the horizon line. So that's how I knew to draw the horizon line there. Okay. So I think I'm going to extend this just a little bit because I think my paper is a little bit longer than I thought. All right, so now that I have my horizon line here, I've estimated where the horizon line would be on my paper. Now I can, um, I need to get the vanishing point about in the same spot. So if I measure, the vanishing point is about a third of the way towards the right. So if I measure 1, 2, 3, like it would be maybe about here, okay? So what I can do now is line up, make sure you can see, is line up my photo with the vanishing point right above the vanishing point that I drew. Okay, so make sure that those are lined up. Then I'm going to slide this down until the horizon line matches. Okay, so you can see how that's over there. And then I'm going to tape it down just so it doesn't move. And this is some really gentle tape. It's some medical tape that I like to use because it doesn't tear paper. And I just messed everything up. So let me do that again. Okay, so I have my vanishing point right on top of the vanishing point I put on the paper. And then I have the horizon line is also matched up. So now all I have to do is take these orthogonals that I found and take those off of the photo onto the paper. So literally like each of those little lines that I drew, I'm carrying those off onto my actual paper. Now for this drawing, the hallway drawing, you can use whatever medium you want. You'll see some really beautiful stuff with watercolor and ink. You'll see some examples with charcoal. You'll see some examples with pastel. Now, does pastel seem like an ideal choice for precision? Not really. Like you saw how messy it was last week. But there are some students that have learned to get really precise with it. So you'll see some better examples with pastel, and then some that maybe the perspective is accurate, but it's really not. The pastels kind of make it look a little less appealing. So you'll see some good and some okay drawings in the examples, and I kind of talk about that in the PowerPoint. So think about the materials that you're using and play to your strengths, I would say, or challenge yourself and see what you can do. If you I've had students do successful stuff with charcoal and with pastels, but I don't want to be fighting like two battles, like learning to master the perspective and pastels at the same time if that's not really your strength. So now you can see I've extended those orthogonals off the page. So now I can take my photo off of the paper, and the rest is going to be just putting everything where it needs to go. So I have, this is the rug here, or the carpet. So now I have my vanishing point. And then the rest, I kind of do it as more of a gesture to get everything played out. So these two lines here, this is the top of the hallway or the sides of the walls here. And so I know that it's a little bit higher up. So I usually do this part more as a gesture. And these come down. So at this point, I will just start like loosely sketching everything else out. So this is the top of this doorway that's closest to us. So all of these, it's really hard to do this at this angle with you guys watching, but where you can still see. And the two little kids are like about right here. So hopefully this makes sense to you. This was that doorway that's like here. And it's okay to make it more gestural and then to go back with your rulers and clean it up in your erasers. And this was the exit sign here and another part. So you just have to keep coming along and keep adding all of the architecture. And once you get everything in the right spot, then you can use whatever medium that you want to go back and fill it in. And so this was one I started doing of this campus last year, and I was going to go back and do more watercolor and stuff on top of it, but I never did. But you can see I did the same thing. I found all of the, I found the vanishing point, the horizon line, and then I translated that to the paper, and then I just needed to fill it in. So I'll just use this example of this little dart station photo. With this one, I want you to see that if I follow these lines here, this one, because I know y'all are asking about how did I know where the vanishing point and the horizon line was. Well, with the dart train and all the tracks, the vanishing point you can see is off over here. That's where everything is crossing. So then, since the horizon line, the vanishing point is always on the line, that means that the horizon line would be about here. Okay, so and then I could find the additional ones here and here. So you just always have to find the vanishing point by lining up the architectural lines, and where they cross, that's the vanishing point, and then the vanishing point's always on the horizon line for 1 point perspective. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for how to start on these two assignments. And you'll get the hang of it. Like once you have your image with all the lines on it, and then you have yours, it's you know like where things go, and you just have to start fleshing it out and finishing all the details and everything, depending on what you're wanting to draw. And you'll have that vanishing point. So if you have to add, if there's furniture or if there's other things in the composition, you'll know that everything is drawn to that one vanishing point. And you'll see a lot of examples in the PowerPoint. Now, I did want to go over just a couple of little tricks, and these are in that handout that says like perspective extras. So if we have, let's say, oops. If we have like our horizon line and a vanishing point here, and then let's say we just have a road that's going back into space here. So again, the horizon line's where the earth and ground meet. When it's indoors though, obviously we can't see that. So that's why we have to find it. And then, so this could be a sidewalk or a road. So let's say that along the side of this road, there is a fence post or a light pole. Okay, so let's say there's a fence post here. Now this is also going to go to the vanishing point because they're all going to get smaller as they go back. So we know that. So I could draw that line there. But then I could draw the second one about where I thought it would be. Okay. And one of the ways you can find like how to make it evenly go back, you can gradually make them closer together, but if you don't do that accurately each time, it's not going to look right. So what I can do is find the angle between this corner and this corner. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, this corner and this corner. Okay, and then I can copy that angle and then slide my ruler over, keeping it parallel. Draw that angle again. You can see these are parallel. Then that will give me where to start the next fence post. It's not 100% accurate, but it's better than just eyeballing it. Okay, so now I do the next one. Then I can take this angle again and slide my ruler over, draw it, then draw my next fence post. All right, then I can find that angle again, move it over. And the reason I'm showing you this is because if you have, like, let's say a drawing of a hallway that has like tiles, like this is one way that you could draw those tiles getting closer as they go back. So you just keep finding that same angle, sliding your ruler over, and and you just keep going back and forth. And you'll see them get closer together, okay? So same thing if it was like tiles or ceiling tiles that were going to the vanishing point. That's one way that you can get a little bit more precision with this. So then let's say like we were going to draw, maybe there's a building here. So let's say this is some tall building and we're going to draw it in 1-point perspective. So we're going to draw it to here. And then we'll determine how big to make one of the sides. All right, so let's say that you want to put a door on this side and you don't know where like the center would be because it's going back into space. So all you have to do is connect a corner to a corner. And this is in that little perspective extras packet that you have access to. And then I'm going to do the other corner to corner. And where those two cross, that would be the center for it going back into space. So that would be the center for you to put if you wanted to center a door or something like that. So those are just a few little tricks that might be helpful if you have like repeating patterns or things in your hallway or things like that that you want to know how to get them, precise going back. But at some point,